Good evening and welcome to the Monday, May 9 Muscatine School Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, can you please take roll and help us determine the quorum, please?
Sure. Director Connard?
Here.
Director Cooney?
Here.
Director DeBeat?
Here.
Director LaRue?
Here.
Director Morgan?
Here.
Director Phillips?
Here.
Director Shore?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance is next. Tonight, Ms. Green's kindergarten class at Mulberry Elementary will lead us into the pledge. Please stand. Thank you, Ms. Green, and thank you also to your students in your kindergarten class at Mulberry Elementary School. Next, I would like to welcome all our visitors and media representatives. With that, we'd like to move into the next item, which is public hearing to amend the FY22 budget. Can I have a motion to open that hearing, please?
I'll make the motion to have a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Madam Secretary, can we have a roll, please?
Sure. Director Connard?
Aye.
Director Cooney?
Aye.
Director DeBeat?
Aye.
Director LaRue?
Aye.
Director Morgan?
Aye.
Director Phillips?
Aye.
Director Shore?
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have any written comments? Did we receive any or comments? Okay. Any question? Okay. If there's no discussion, no questions, I'd like to move to have also a motion to close that public hearing, please.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing, and we have a second. Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Connard?
Aye.
Director Cooney?
Aye.
Director DeBeat?
Aye.
Director LaRue?
Aye.
Director Morgan?
Aye.
Director Phillips?
Aye.
And Director Shore?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, we move into our next item on our agenda for tonight's Student School Board Representative Report. Dylan, all yours, please.
Thank you. So it's a pretty busy time of the year. Right now we're in the last couple weeks of school, but I'll keep it pretty brief in what I've got to share. So the first thing is just spring sports are starting to come to an end. I know the soccer season's still got a few games left. Tennis and track are coming to an end, and then I know summer sports like baseball and softball are starting to start up. This Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning, we have our academic awards for our seniors at the high school, and that's open to any parents or guardians. The second thing another thing I have is scholarship night is next Wednesday, and that includes anyone who is receiving a scholarship got an invitation to that. AP exams are this week and last week, so students are super busy trying to earn that college credit that they worked so hard for all year. Last day for seniors is next Wednesday. I know a lot of us cannot wait, but it's kind of scary at the same time. And then on the 22nd is graduation, so it's coming up pretty quickly.
Thank you, Dylan. Any question for Dylan?
Dylan, I want to just say thank you for what you've done for the last 2 years for serving with us. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've been able to get a lot done, and I really like the things that the school district is doing for students moving forward.
And I just want to say also that I hear that you're going to the University of Iowa, which is where I went to school, so congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. And we look forward, obviously, for the graduation. I think this is the highlights of all of us as board members when we come and share that day with our graduates. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, with that, we move into Citizen Speaks. If anyone in the audience wants to address the board, please step to the podium, state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes. Per Iowa code, the board is not able to respond to citizens during Citizen Speaks.
Thank you. I'm Holly Opelt, the president of the League of Women Voters of Muscatine County. And joining me is Sue Johansson, who is a longtime president of League of Women Voters. In 2020, the Hard Won Not Done Committee in the state of Iowa was organized to celebrate the centennial of women's rights to vote. There were lots of things planned all over the state, including Muscatine, but unfortunately, COVID hit and shut us down. So many Muscatine County women contributed to the educational fund of the League of Women Voters of Iowa. The aim was to feature women's work to gain the right to vote and learn about other important contributions by women in the realms of life. So we purchased books. We delivered to the school board office today quite a few books. There's a set of 2 sets for each of the school libraries. We've delivered to the Musser Library, to Wilton, West Liberty, Columbus Junction, L&M. So what we've distributed is She Persisted. It's a book written by Chelsea Clinton and Alexandra Boinger. I'm sorry, I don't know how that's pronounced. She Persisted has 13 American women who changed the world, and it's for the younger level students. This other one is Amazing Women, Over 100 Lives to Inspire You, by Laura Wilson and Sarah Green. I hope they enjoy them. I hope they use them. That's what our goal is. So the League is proud to present these books to the Muscatine Community School District. So we hope you enjoy them. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you, Sue, and thank you to the League of Women's Voters. Thank you for that. I'm sure the books will find a great use in our libraries. Thank you. Thanks. Our next item is the board targets goals report, and under that we have different items. Item A, students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. Item B, Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably. Item C, students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. And under that, number 1, desired daily experience survey results. And number 2, Muscatine Community School enrollment analysis. With that, I will turn that into our superintendent, Clint, please.
So we do have some, I think, important presentations, information to present tonight. I'm going to start out with item A, students graduating prepared for post-secondary options. So maybe just to add a little more drama to tonight, I decided to wait to recognize Dylan because I think he fits great under this category of graduating prepared for success. So this is year 2 for me, and as we started, this is really important to have student school board representatives that share student voice and perspective. And so we were very fortunate that Dylan signed up. And I can tell you, everything we had hoped for in a student rep you've been. And you've put in the time, more time, you volunteer, you come in, you come to our community conversations. You've just been a great representative of students. I know the work that you're doing back at the high school in working with students, getting perspective, working with Mr. Hoganson. I have a superintendent advisory. Dylan also serves on that. We've struggled to get students there. He's also found some ways to encourage more students there. So again, always going above and beyond. And we just thank you. I thank you for your service and for adding your perspective and comments, and appreciate your updates every month, and looking forward to your ongoing success as you go on to the University of Iowa. We're very proud of you for that. And with that, we have a little plaque for you to thank you for your time here on the board, and I think we'll probably want to get a little picture with that as well. So let me shake your hand.
Good job, Bill.
And then with that, we'll turn it over to Tony to talk a little bit about the Desired Daily Experience survey results.
Yeah, thank you, Clint. So I'm excited to share the results from the first ever Desired Daily Experience survey. And we'll start with our first slide here. So the purpose of the DDE, MCSD Desired Daily Experiences are things that the district strives to achieve for all students, families, and staff on a daily basis. What you'll see next to some of the text there is just a more improved poster-ready document that speaks to exactly what we're striving to achieve each day. Oops, let me go forward again. Out of everybody that was solicited, 1,465 responses came into the DDE. It was sent out via Power School. We have over 6,000 contacts in there, shared on MCSD social media, district website, and thankfully, through some community partners, we had some businesses and organizations that shared posts they had seen on Facebook. Again, trying to capture as many people as possible, okay? The next plan, or the plan following this, is to do the DDE survey on an annual basis, and we look to do that again in October of 2022. And that will probably be the date moving forward. So every October, folks will look for the DDE survey. We know that at the end of the year, as Dylan alluded to with a lot of events going on, there's also a lot of surveys going on, like conditions of learning. And we don't want to overwhelm anybody, right? We know that for people with kids, young and old, they're busy, and then they just get busier this time of year. So shifting into the fall, we'll be able to get this to even more people, and I fully expect the responses in total to go up. So we start to look at exactly the breakdown of the DDE for students. You can see on the screen and in front of you, and if you're watching at home, this entire presentation is available in the agenda. I'm valued, respected, and accepted for who I am. Bullet points under there. I'm recognized and celebrated for my accomplishments in and out of school. Points under there. And I have opportunities to engage in real and relevant learning for me. So the response from students, I thought, for the first time, was very strong. What's important to note, responses in blue indicate strongly agree, and red indicate agree. And if you note for the student responses, all but one or over 50% strongly agree or agree. The exception being I'm celebrated for my hard work and accomplishments, which we'll touch on in a little bit. It's also worth noting that 81% of students said they have opportunities to collaborate with others in the classroom and in the community. 61% of students strongly or agree with feeling safe at school, and 66% said they agree with staff knowing them and caring about them. So again, as you look at that, red and blues are what we're looking for, right? So this next one is just kind of the page 2, again, looking at the specific questions. How are students feeling? The blues and reds are what we want to see, and like I indicated, most are at 50% or exceeding that. So some of the comments. So another part of the DDE at the very bottom was an opportunity for everybody that took the survey, students, families, and staff, to leave comments, thoughts. And these are some of the themes that we identified throughout the survey for students. And you can see it ranges from things like discrimination and bullying, safe environment, more caring, understanding staff, recognizing good students, more fun, social time, lunchtime, more recess, which 20 years ago I would have probably agreed with, more field trips, choice in learning activities, address issues of racism, focus on mental health, and start school later in the morning. So quite a few of our students would love, one even said, I think 10 a.m. would be great. We could start at 10. But as I indicated earlier, you know, recognizing good students, you could take that as celebrating students' accomplishments in all capacities, right? So that's something that we're going to continue to work on. And all of the themes that we identified, and I'll get to this at the end, are things that at the district level, we're going to put together action plans so that we can come back to you and say, hey, the DDE, we had themes of an example like choices in learning activities. Here's what we're doing to improve that. So then hopefully in October, when we have the DDE survey taken again, those responses are shifted, showing our progress. Desired daily experience for MCSD families, again, just hitting some of the high points. I'm valued, respected, and accepted for who I am. With points under that, I'm engaged in my child's learning and know my roles, expectations, and how to navigate the school district and its processes. And I'm confident my child is safe, accepted, valued, cared for, and supported academically, socially, and emotionally by all staff in the district. Getting into the families' responses again, looking red and blue, strongly agree or agree. For families, responses are all over 50%, strongly agree or agree, with some exceeding 80%, right? So that's good to see. Again, there's still work that can be done, no doubt. Page 2 of the families, more of the same. Red and blue is what we want to see, with each, again, exceeding 50%. And let me go to page 3. Last one here, just an example of one of those questions. My students will be prepared and ready for each step in their learning. You can see that's almost, 80% agreeing there. My child is celebrated as an individual and his or her accomplishments. You can see over 60, 70% there. Themes from our families. So, what do we identify? Communication, behavior, SEL, culture and climate, academic, assessment, logistics, safety, class size, and special populations. So, as I mentioned previously, things that we looked at as a district administrative team, we'll be able to put into action plans and come back to you and share this is what we're doing to address communication from the district to families, or logistics, or class size, so that for people that took the time to leave their feedback, we want them to know that we heard them, it's validated, and these are the things we're going to do next. Okay, let me go to staff. So again, some of the highlights at the top for staff: I'm valued, respected, and accepted for who I am. My work and development is real and relevant for me. I feel that I am supported to do well and recognized for my contributions and gifts I bring. Staff responses: blue indicate, again, strongly agree, red agree. For staff responses, all are over 50%, either strongly agree or agree, with some exceeding 90%. A couple more examples of responses from staff. You can see things like, I have time to collaborate with my colleagues, I feel supported by colleagues, administration, and here is the third page with staff. And it was important to show the board and the community each question that was asked, each response, and how that figured into these percentages, so people know that, again, if they took the time to complete it, we're being very transparent and showing you this is what folks said in their answers, and then here's what they said in the comments and what we're going to do about it. Okay? Some themes with staff comments: student behavior and consequences, district to building communication, accountability, feedback, more teachers' voice, creating district connections and celebrations, time to work / collaborate with each other, total compensation, training, especially for new staff, mental health supports, specifically in the lower levels, so at the elementary building, K-6, supports at the Muscatine Learning Center, and district administration visibility, connecting with staff by building. So as I indicated, some of the next steps. So district leadership will create action plans for each of the survey themes that we previously identified. Once created, start to share with the community what steps are being taken to address what was stated by those who completed the survey. Comments from the entire DDE survey will be available to be viewed later this week via the district website, along with this presentation if you want to take a look at it again. And then in October, the DDE survey will be done again, and my hope is to ensure that everybody in Muscatine, whether they are a student, whether it's a family, staff member, has an opportunity to complete it. So the survey was available in a couple different languages. My thought as we look into October is, what about physical copies, right? Do we need to look at direct mailing a survey that also has a QR code to each household in the city of Muscatine, so that we can say, hey, if you missed it online or on the website, it's in your mailbox. And you can scan it if you have a QR code. If you don't have a QR code, you can fill out the survey and then drop it off at the administration center. So I think that's important to me, to do everything that we can so that there's nobody that goes, well, I didn't have an opportunity to participate in the DDE. And then just continuing to ask community partners, like we did this last round, continuing to ask businesses, organizations. I think like the Community Foundation shared it for us. I think the Y shared it. But if they have a footprint online, can you pick up the post about the DDE and try and get it in front of as many people as possible? Because what we know about Muscatine is sometimes there's a funnel with information, and you can feel like you've checked every box, and I know this from my 10 years here, but undoubtedly someone will say, I didn't know there was a survey. And I would love if that didn't happen, if we could ensure. Now, is that wishful thinking? Maybe. But my hope is that people will go, okay, there's that DDE survey. A, I know what it is. B, I know when it's going to be given in October. And C, I feel good about taking the time to complete it because I know the district is taking what I have to say seriously. So with that, I'll open it up for your questions or comments as we look at the DDE.
Tony, I just, I'm excited about the survey and the results. Obviously, I like the reds and the blues, but I guess what was drawn to my attention was we have a number of green and orange that are 20% or 21% to 25%.
Sure.
And I think that we need to make sure we look at those things and address those things. And I think that's what those comments at the end would draw to that. So
yes, and I would agree with you, Denny. I think as we looked at who was responding to the questions, whether it was students, families, or staff, those lower percentages were more than likely, it was like 90% were tied into a theme that we displayed. So you're absolutely right.
The parents obviously, we must be doing something right, evidently, because they were overwhelmingly positive. The only thing that I saw that they were kind of negative about was that their child's excited to come to learn, and that's part our job and also part their job.
Yeah, definitely. I know that my kids jump out of bed every morning willingly and they're totally dressed and ready to go, and it's never a struggle. That's how it is. That's not true. It's a struggle some days. So you're right, though. I mean, what can we do to ensure that our students feel good about it? And here's one thing that I'll tell you as we get ready for Muskie Spark to come back at Jefferson, our summer program. Dr. Steele and Corey Spies, Principal Spies, that run Muskie Spark, would tell you that students were running into the building because they were so excited, because they knew they had their classroom learning, and then they had a lot of that enrichment. And again, one of the things that I'll say, in my time in Muscatine as a parent and an employee, I'm really positive and optimistic about continuing those, whether it's enrichment, bringing things into the classroom, or like the work that's being done at the high school, getting kids ready to graduate. So I hope that that will continue to shift. I don't know if kids are going to sprint in every day, but I think as we continue to look at different programs and offerings, and you're right, that's on us. Just like it's kind of 50-50 between the families and us, and I think we can certainly improve that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Tony, I also, with how Denny has said here, but also I looked at one in particular, says if prepared and supported. It was interesting that it was a difference between what the kids thought, the students thought they were prepared and supported for, and what the parents thought that the kids are.
Sure.
And so that becomes somewhere in a communication issue. How can we make sure that that's closer, to should be the same. They should be on the same page as in what's going on with that even.
Yeah, and again, I think as we continue to talk about the programs and offerings that the district has at a district level by building in the community, getting that narrative out there, that hopefully that will continue to shift, so that the parents feel like they know, why their student would respond to something, or that they feel like they're going to be set up for success. So yeah, definitely something we can work on for sure.
Do you want to say?
Sure. This might be a little premature for a question,
Sure.
so maybe more of just a statement, but as those action plans with district leadership are developed, or we're having those discussions, will there be, or maybe there should be, representation from all three of those groups too, so that if teacher feedback is one of the things that's in the comments, that their voices are heard from the beginning?
Yeah.
And then I'll just note too that in the comments, the recess and those kinds of things were nice, and I would probably put that too. But the bullying and the racism issues and stuff, those stood out to me, and so I would just hope that that's maybe prioritized as those action plans
Definitely.
are developed.
Yes, I think, again, this is all new to all of us, so we're kind of going to be able to define this as we go. And you're right, I think Clint would agree, and Joelle and Becky and everyone, that having those voices at the table matter, so that we can tell them, again, hey, we heard you, here's what you said, here's what we're doing, and we're going to come back to you and share progress that's been made, right?
And I know that always gets harder and slows things down, but
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, if we're hoping to, reflect that in, when I'm up here in November following October, I would feel good about, us taking the time and due diligence to say, hey, here's why those numbers improved, because we set aside the time to meet with these groups and make sure that they felt valued. And one of the other things I'll just mention on that, that initial slide, the second one that had the DDE as kind of like a poster, one of the things we're going to do as a district is work with a local printer and have those printed poster size, get them in each classroom. Because again, we need to make sure that the DDE, that the people know what it is, right? And if they can go into a classroom and see it in preschool and then see it in 7th grade. So that's something that we'll be doing this summer, and then getting those distributed for the start of the school year, so that this isn't just a once a year, oh, there's the DDE stuff, right? It's something you see across the district. So.
And will you remind me one more time the age of the students that take this, or
Yeah.
grade level?
Yeah, so we went 5th grade, 5th through 12th. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Tony,
Sure.
I want to, again, first of all, say thank you for sharing the outcome and the results with us. And yes, I do agree with Lindsay that we need to involve these 3 groups in whatever planning in the future. But also, I would like everybody to remember that if we are repeating that in October, I just want everybody to be cautious into not believing or assuming that we're going to see a huge change from now till October. So I would like to see that treatment to whatever we see in this going over 1 year period, and then running that survey. So what I'm trying to say, even in this October, if we see a very minimum change, that's still good to see. But perhaps we might not see a huge change because of the time limits. It's going to be like 1 month if you are thinking about full month of September, and then October they're going to take that. So that's something that I want everybody to be aware
that's
of.
Very true. It'd be more fair to look October to October.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So either Clint or Tony, how do we define success? Because to piggyback off of what Denny said, 1 out of 5, typically what we saw were 80% of them were positive, but that means 1 out of 5 families, parents, staff members were not, and that's not, I don't think anybody would say that that's an acceptable number, that 1 out of 5 people are not happy, that they're not having their needs met. Sure. So how do we define success, and is that's part of a report card, right? And
Correct.
how are we reporting that out to people, the progress that we're making?
Yep. So that will be a part of that vision card work. And I think just comments back to all of you, the important piece is that this isn't a checkbox, right? It isn't a destination. It has to be ongoing. And even, defining success, if we're really listening to what they're saying, that can change over time, what the concerns are, right? And we have to be listening to that each time and making adjustments to that. Certainly as I think about some of the themes around communication and celebrations, even some of the student themes, certainly the last 2 years have played a big part in that. And as we move forward, is that making a difference? The SEL, social emotional learning and discipline, right? We have just finished a framework that addresses some of those pieces, and we'll begin rolling that out next year as part of an implementation. So, some of the things that we're already building into the operational plan kind of address some of those things. And again, we may not see huge swings in October, but we're coming back to it. And it's very important that people know we're listening and we're going to do something with this information. It wasn't just something we can say, yep, we got a survey, looks good, we'll check it off and move on, that there's action behind it.
And Clint, to piggyback off of that just a little bit, Tony, I'm glad that you're trying to think outside the box on how to reach more people and involve more people in the taking of the survey. But one of the things that jumped out to me was the staff members, that their perception is that less than 60%, 56, 57% of them felt like they were informed. Now, I know that the effort is there, that we're trying to reach out to everybody, but it's probably, we need to reach out in a different way. And we're going to have some people that just say, I didn't know, because they didn't want to listen at the time that they were being explained to them. I understand that part of it, but we really want that transparency. And so, to piggyback off what you're saying, just try different ways to let them know what we're doing and involve them. So, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely need their buy-in, Mike, and their understanding of why it's important and when to look for it, and to be able to then say, well, I said this, and wow, now they're addressing it, and I can see where that's going to have some real change implemented. So I think you're right. Yeah, I would love to see all of those numbers go up. One of the things that, and just a shout out to the elementary principals, that they did a great job, was just sitting down with those 5th and 6th graders. And if you look at some of the reporting on who took the survey, the 5th and 6th numbers were huge, because the elementary principals talked to their staff made it something that was important for those students to do. And same thing with the numbers from the high school. But I was really kind of surprised to see that engagement from 5th and 6th. But it also showed me that when I asked my colleagues for their help, they followed through, and they had conversations with their staff, and they got the kids to understand why it was important. And I hope that that continues to grow, because 1,456 responses is not good enough for me. I'm not up here cheerleading about it. We can do better, and we will, as far as total people responding. So.
There was some feedback too, I don't know if it's even possible at this point now that it's been administered once, but just maybe breaking up some of those points too, that whether or not someone feels safe, valued, and respected, the answer may not be the same to all 3 points.
Sure.
So maybe being able to break some of that up, that's not the
It's good feedback, yeah.
data
And that's something
person,
we've
but
talked about
if
as well.
possible.
So absolutely, Lindsay, yeah. Yep, again, the goal is that whomever sees this doesn't sigh first, and then they go through it and they feel like, okay, that does speak to me, to my experience, right? So yeah, that's excellent feedback, thank you. We can definitely
And the
do
number's
that.
good. I think you got a good
Yeah.
number of people to fill it out in comparison to other feedback that you've solicited for, so.
Yeah, yeah,
Good.
yes, true.
And Tony, just a little bit more on that, when I was saying about the communication between the students and the parents, I'm not quite sure what that answer would really be, but since there is that kind of gap in there, is there something that we can do to help encourage maybe because it almost has to be the encouragement from the kids' end of it, to talk to their parents so that they're able to make sure that the parents are really understanding what is going on in their time. And I know, of course, there's the parent-teacher conferences and things like that, but what we can do to encourage the students on a more daily basis or something, so if there is some questions or, problems that come up, then they feel that they're more alerted to it for that
Yeah.
communication.
And
I'll
I would just say
go
too, I think we're always going to see a little bit of a discrepancy there, because we can't assume that the parents who are responding correlate specifically to the students who responded. So there may be a little bit of that. But again, we have to monitor that over time. Are they getting closer? Are they getting further away? Are we getting more responses, fewer responses? All that has to be looked at as we move forward.
I agree.
And Karen, I was just going to say, like, when I think about like the elementary level and the communication that you'll have from teachers to families with things like Class Dojo, I feel like that's improved over the last couple of years in ways that we're able to have, direct lines of communication from the classroom to families. And hopefully that's something that maybe staff could consider, hey, talk to your parents about, are they getting the info from us? I think our staff do an excellent job when it comes to things like, back to school nights, getting parents signed up and onto things like Class Dojo and pointing them to different resources. One of the things that I'll hopefully come back and share with you maybe next month is the district new website. Again, just more ways that people know, here's where I can get information. I know it's going to be what I need because it's there on a consistent basis. And consistency with communication is key, right? We know that. If you're saying and doing the right things on a consistent basis over as many channels as possible, we're going to hopefully see that shift. And like Clint said, they're going to get closer together versus further apart. Even though people tell me that as kids get older, they might not talk to you as much as parents. I'm not ready for that in my house. But I do hope that we can be a district that encourages those strong relationships between families and students, right? So, anything else?
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Great report. Thank you.
I'm ready. We're going to talk about enrollment as, so last year we did have a study done by RSP out of Kansas City looking at our enrollment trends. What we found in the fall was already those trends were not where they were projected to be, significantly off. You know, obviously COVID played a factor in that, so we wanted them to come back and take another look at that. So I'm sharing some of that with you tonight. These, the slides I pulled out of here, I thought were the ones that were, you know, kind of most relevant to our conversation. There's a lot of information here, so I'm going to kind of hit the highlights, and certainly we'll keep it out there, and it's something we're going to have to continue to monitor as we move forward. So the starting with kind of that 100,000 foot perspective in general, as they look at things, district enrollment over the next 5 years would be forecasted to decrease by 400 students. Okay, as we look at that at an elementary level, it's about 80 students over that time period, 120 at the junior high, and 220 at the high school. So you can see how that kind of long-term impacts each level. They also look at our capacity. And essentially what they're saying is based on, again, I'm giving you the highlights here, and we can dig into some of these as you have questions. Based on our projected enrollments, we have the existing capacity to address the students that we have, okay, or that we're projected to have. That doesn't mean that they'll always be in the right spots or each building will be, you know, maybe the right fit. So there's adjustments, and that'll tie into some facility comments that, that I'll make later tonight. And then areas of potential development. So, you know, one of the things we're talking about is, you know, the lack of new, and it says right in here, the lack of new residential growth is a main driving force to the enrollment decline. We'll get into that a little bit too as we get into some of these further slides. And again, as we talk about housing, that's not just a school district issue, that's a community issue and something that, you know, everyone's talking about and we need to continue to talk about. Go. So one of the big important pieces as we look at planning here is birth rate. And so these numbers are really small, but so we know based on the number of live births specific to Muscatine County and Muscatine School District, as that gets reported back to us, we capture a percentage of that. That's typically then what we see as kindergarten enrollment. An issue that's driving, you know, some of this decline, when you look at 2020, the live births dropped by 92 babies. Okay, so we went from in that kind of 523, 530, 550 in there to 431. Now that's for 1 year. So that's something we're going to have to continue to monitor because then that 431, which again is about a 20% decrease in what we would typically see, then we capture a percentage of that. And when that kindergarten class comes in low, it kind of, you see that through the whole system. It kind of plays through the whole system, right? And we're going to be graduating classes that are larger than the ones we're bringing in. So that kind of compounds that factor. And they talk about, you know, when you talk to the people who put these together, it's like the python who eats, you know, this animal. You can kind of see how it kind of works its way through the, you know, the system of the snake, so to speak. So that live birth is going to play a significant factor and something we're going to have to continue to monitor. Now, again, some of the things, comments that I've heard as I've shared some of this information already, sometimes I'll get a comment, well, we don't have a birth center here in Muscatine anymore. Well, there are still people that live in Muscatine and they're going to the Quad Cities or they're going to Iowa City. That still gets tracked back to us, right? So it's not necessarily a factor that we don't necessarily have a birth center in Trinity Muscatine, but just the number of live births has gone down, right? But again, we'll continue to monitor that very closely. Another piece that we look at very closely year to year is open enrollment. Those who are, that when it talks about migration, that's open enrolling out of the, out migration is open enrolling out. In migration is those that are coming in. And what you can see, and it shows this by elementary, middle, and high school over 19 to, the 2019 school year, 2020, and 21-22. In 21-22, we narrowed that gap in all three areas. At the elementary level, at the middle school, and actually just about broke even at the high school level. So essentially, we shrank that gap quite a bit than what we've seen in the past. Again, that's something we're going to have to continue to monitor. But that was a positive sign that we've seen that slow down, but we want to continue to monitor that and keep that tight. Just so you're aware, too, as some of Tony's work, when we have those families that are open and rolling out, he's doing follow-up, finding out, and also working with our technology department. Do we know, did they move out of state, or did they move to a different district? Where are they going? We shared some of that data with you in the fall. For a number of the families that were leaving, they were actually leaving the state. It wasn't just that they were going to another district. So again, with COVID this past year, we had more open enrolling to online programs. It certainly had an impact on our kindergarten and preschool enrollments as well. So that's something we're going to have to continue to watch closely. And this page is one I just wanted to bring to your attention. The areas in orange, or where student population is increasing, okay? And as we move to green, it's where it's decreasing. So it just kind of gives you a snapshot of the areas, for the most part, that are either static, growing, or declining. And so you can see where some of those pieces are happening. And again, we'll talk a little bit about developments down the road. But again, just to give you a quick snapshot, or where are the areas where we're seeing increases in students and where we're seeing decreases. There we go. This is one that we saw last year, and I just think it helps really frame. This is our student population as a heat density map. And you can see the density around our students is right around Jefferson. Obviously, as we look at this, it's concentrated downtown. There is an area by McKinley that's also, I believe, we have a housing complex there that kind of drives that kind of heat spot right there. But as we think about boundaries, as we think about long-term facility planning, this is an important kind of map to keep in mind. Also, one, as you share this with people, kind of surprises them a little bit. There's a belief that closer to the bypass, we've got more students, more growth out there. It really is concentrated more towards our downtown. So this observations and conclusions, a lot of the stuff we've already talked about, and it kind of reframes this several times. So again, things we've talked about, the live births that we saw, kind of the historical enrollment observations, open enrollment, how that's been impacted by the pandemic, and certainly monitoring how kids cohort through different grade levels. I didn't put that in here, it's in the overall presentation, but it's just a whole lot of data on a page that I don't know that necessarily would help you. Just that we are monitoring, where that happens. We have a big jump in 8th to 9th grade. We also get a lot of kids from the private school into the high school, from St. Mary Matthias. So again, a lot of those components are kind of built into this overall. Another thing that is important to just share with you as we think about this, and we'll talk, this starts where it digs into some of the housing issues. And these are yield rates. So as the first table on top, as we look at single family homes, really over the past decade. So I'll use Mulberry as an example. Mulberry's the last one on that list there. In 2011, if you would have built 100 new single-family homes in the Mulberry area, that would have produced 30 students. Last year, those 100 single-family homes, new single-family homes, would have produced 17. So even with the housing as it's being developed, and there's not a lot out there right now, we're seeing less and less kind of capture from that. So again, there's a variety of things that are happening there. It's affordability of housing. It's aging in place. We have a lot of people in our community. They love their neighborhood. They love their home. They're staying put, right? So the available housing isn't necessarily there. So we're not capturing as much when that does turn over. And again, then it'll show it for multifamily housing. So apartments, condos, those kind of things. You can see it's significantly less than it is from single-family homes, which is a typical trend. So here's another quick, just an interesting graph, and what that shows in yellow. So if you look at that whole pie graph, that's all of the housing stock in Muscatine. In yellow are the homes that were built in 1939 and older. So over half of our homes are older than 1939. Then you can see by decade those kind of sections there. Towards the very top is 2010 to 2019. You can see what's happening is those pieces of the pie are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. There's just not a lot of new homes being built, right? And again, that's having an impact on turnover, on bringing new families in, bringing new students in into the district. Not just an issue for the school district, it's an issue for the entire community, and something we continue to talk about at a community level. But this is a challenge. So this, again, just kind of a summary of that. Overall, the housing inventory is very mature. There's very little potential for future growth. Building activity has actually declined. And again, when we have that building activity, we're seeing fewer students actually coming with those families. There we go. So this this slide just kind of summarizes previous enrollment and then the projection of the next 5 years, where you can see that decline. You can see in the green is our high school enrollment. The blue there is our junior high enrollment, and then the red is our elementary. The biggest hit over these next 5 years is the high school. Okay, so we'll have to continue to monitor that. And as we look at these levels and all of this enrollment, it plays into funding, it plays into staffing. So these are things we're going to have to monitor very closely as we move forward. And again, at the bottom there, it just kind of summarizes each of those pieces. Now, again, that's over the 5-year period. We won't see that all at once. And, again, we were projected to have a decrease at the high school from last year into this year. We actually saw an increase, and we saw more kids open enrolling into the high school. So it may not materialize, but we're going to have to watch it very closely. Again, just summarizing pretty much everything that we've talked about really over the next two slides as we look at peak enrollments and the decreases there, how that's impacting elementary class size, middle school class size. And when we say class here, we're not talking about a section of students with one teacher. We're talking about by building the number of students at that grade level, okay? That's why you see it different at elementary versus middle school versus high school. So we're talking about elementary, that would be like the 6th grade class at Mulberry, right? And then, of course, as they get into Susan Clark Junior High, that 7th grade class now pulls from all the elementary, so that's a little bit bigger, right? Same thing at the high school. As it talks about some of the capacity issues, it does in the report, which I didn't include, as we look at individual buildings, we have some capacity challenges. For Franklin, it's resident student projections. And what that means for Franklin is if all the students that reside in the Franklin area actually went to Franklin, it would be over capacity. A lot of those students transfer out into other elementaries within the district. Okay, so in some ways we're fortunate that's happening because that's keeping that building from being over capacity. Grant is an attendance student projection. So based on the number of students that live in Grant plus the number that are open enrolling into it, it was projected to have a capacity issue. So we're going to have to monitor each of our elementary buildings in terms of size and what we allow in. As people ask for inter-district transfers, we're going to look at section numbers and class sizes, and we may say, yep, you can attend that building, or no, you can't. And that may change from year to year, right? There might be, this year there might be families we let into a kindergarten class at Grant because of their numbers there that next year we won't be able to. So that may change from year to year, but something we'll have to watch closely. Again, also this all ties into some of our facility planning that we'll talk about a little bit later tonight. And again, just conclusions and considerations, constant monitoring with this as we see this play out over the next 5 years, how that plays into budgets and planning and staffing as we look at, and Tom will tell you we've done a good job in this district kind of right-sizing as people retire. We did not do a retirement incentive this year, partially because we were struggling to hire staff. Next year, as we kind of look at some of these projections, we're going to need to be back doing that again. But all those pieces, as we try to, right-size our district, as we look at our capture rates, as we look at those live births, we're going to have to come back and monitor this closely. I think right now, and I'll just scroll back to our projections for kindergarten. I think they were projecting us for this fall in kindergarten at 306 for this coming school year. Right now, we have 297 that are registered. We typically pick up students over the summer, so we may exceed that. And again, that's something as we get to the start of the year, we're monitoring that with staffing and some of the adjustments that are made. But ultimately, our goal is try to exceed some of those benchmarks in terms of where kids are coming in at. Okay? And with that, answer any questions that you have. Again, it's a lot of information, and that's why you have the reports.
Clint, thank you for that. Just a couple of questions. On the one, on the projection, observation, and conclusions, just two outlines you have there, 2 bullet points. Redistricting of elementary boundaries or analyzing of elementary student transfer policy, and the enrollment should be analyzed annually to ensure the best building and staff decisions are made to enhance the student academic experience. Those two, when do those happen? Who's doing that activity, and when are decisions made, or how are they made? Either on the redistricting or the enrollment on the building.
It kind of happens throughout the year. So right now, we've already been talking about staffing. A lot of that's based on the enrollments that we have now and what that looks like rolling forward. So basically, we're going to take, especially at the elementary levels, we're going to take that 4th grade class size that we have right now, the numbers in 4th grade, roll that into 5th grade, right? And then we always kind of hold kindergarten typical to what we've seen. So, and some of our smaller buildings, it's 2 sections, which would be about 20 students in each section. And on our larger 3 sections, we plan on those 3 sections. As the enrollments come in, we see how that plays out. One of the challenges that we have in this community is just mobility. We're going to have kids move out over the summer. We're going to have kids move in. They don't always come in and out in the nice little packages that makes planning really easy. So, we have our staffing kind of set, but we may have to adjust that. Our enrollment may increase, and we may have to add staffing to handle that. Or it may shift, and we may have to move staffing to support that, right? So those are things, principals are meeting weekly to talk about staffing right now as we kind of prepare to be set for the summer. And then as we get into August, it's sometimes daily. We're talking about enrollments and staffing and where kids are moving in. And again, so as we look at Inter-district transfers and open enrollments, we don't approve those until July, and part of that is to kind of see how things have played out before we say, yes, you can move from this building to that building. And again, some of those things we may have to make adjustments in the school year. Then as more students come in, if they ask for a different building, we will say, no, it's full, we can't allow you in there. But there might be another building that does have an opening where we could do that. So we try to accommodate them that way.
As far as the redistricting question, when would that conversation ever or come up? When would redistricting happen if needed, and how does that kind of process work?
So, and some of that can happen, some of that's through our facility planning. Some of that is, as Ryan is looking at enrollments and busing schedules, there might be small neighborhoods. It wouldn't be whole scale, like wiping out all the boundaries and starting over again. It might be a small portion of a neighborhood where we know if we moved them from this boundary to the next boundary, that would help with capacities long term. And then even doing that, you can allow some transition time. So allow, a few years where if you want to stay in that current boundary, we would allow you to do that. So there's ways we can work through that process.
Does the open enrollment change, or is that reevaluated for every family, or are you like grandfathered in once you choose to open enroll? How does that work?
So we've typically allowed you to stay in once you've open enrolled, and if you are inter-district transfers, separating internal people from the district and open enrollments from outside of the district, right? When you come from outside of the district, we'll say like right away, we have space here or we don't, right? Once you're in, you're in. A lot of times if there are siblings, we allow that as well. We allow the siblings to come along. So again, it might be the case where we've allowed you in to grant for this year. You can stay in, but we can't let anybody else in.
Clint, I have just a quick question about the capacity of Franklin, especially now after moving the dual language program there. Are we okay on the capacity of that building?
So we're going to have to monitor how that is long term in terms of, so one of the things we didn't know is the kind of how popular that would be. If it grows more than what it is right now, that capacity would be an issue unless that became a dual enrollment, building. It also depends on what their kindergarten enrollments look like and how kids flow through the system. Again, we've had an issue with Franklin it's our largest number of students who are inter-district transferring out of that building, right? So we'll have to, kind of monitor that as we move forward.
Thank you.
Mine is more of the observation, because I know we talked earlier in our conversation time before coming up here a little bit about the housing stock. And you hit it on the nail here, because that's exactly what I was talking about with that 1939 and the very old stock that we have. But we are, as a school, although it's part of what happens, it's happening to us because of what the population, what is all going around within our city. And I think on a whole, considering what you just said, I think we do a very good job of trying to manage where all of that is supposed to be. The unfortunate part is because of that concentration in those certain areas that are downtown and stuff like that, that becomes probably burdensome, being able to tell where you want to be able to utilize those students at and everything with it. And it just reminds me of the fact that, and I know we'll have more conversations about that, is our own school buildings are also getting old too. So what all of those combination of things are going to be in this next 5 years. It's a lot.
Yep. And again, we're going to have to continue to monitor all those pieces. And also RSP, and several times throughout this entire study, make it very clear, this is a projection. It could go lower, it could go higher. And that's why we have to continually kind of monitor where those things are at. We do know there's going to be less impact in terms of a decline at the elementary than there is middle school and high school. And so again, we have the capacity we need right now. We do, in fact, at Madison, we still have a portable classroom that we're leveraging. We can't get rid of that, because if we do, then we're really at a capacity issue there. That's where it ties into our facility planning, and again, how we adjust small boundaries, how we look at future facility decisions that can have an impact on all those components.
Any other question for Clint? Well, thank you, Clint, for sharing all this information with us. Anything else that you would like to share with us in terms of updates?
Yep, so I've got a few things. One, just that May is School Board Recognition Month, so all of you have a little certificate from Iowa Association of School Boards. Again, just want to say thank you for the time and commitment that you have. You know, when I think about the desired daily experiences, I know those are your focus. What's best for kids, what's best for our staff, and what's best for our families. And so I appreciate all the, and again, most people don't see all the time and energy that goes into your role, but we do want to say thank you for all of that. Also, as we've thanked Dylan for his service as a student school board rep, as he leaves, we have to replace him. So we were very fortunate that Karen and Lindsay worked through a process with us as we had applications and they did interviews. And we do have a replacement, and that will be Caleb Carlson. Caleb Carlson. So we're excited to have him join Gabriel next year here at the table. And I don't know if Karen and Lindsay, if you have anything you'd like to add in terms of the process, but again, I think appreciate all the efforts in getting that process done.
I just need to say that the candidates that we had all were quite impressive, and that shows to me a good positive of what our kids at that level, that they come in, they were prepared. They knew exactly how to be able to tell us why, you know, they wanted to be on, and where some of their thoughts about the school and diversity, and just, oh my gosh, it was so many different things. And so I just want to say that thank you for that opportunity to take and get a chance to know a couple of them.
And then a couple other pieces. One, although she won't like this, I'm going to say thank you to Daphne for all of the work that she puts in to Race for the Schools, which was on Saturday. And she does a tremendous job. I didn't realize last year, because she was working down in a different office area, how much time she puts in that. And she gets some help, but she does a tremendous job. It was a beautiful day. Everything went really well. So Daphne, thank you for all the time and energy you put into that. Then the last piece, we have talked about, we talked about facilities tonight. We do have a facility committee made up of community members. We have some school board members on that, some district administration, some building representation. We've been looking at different possibilities with really the goal of bringing some recommendations to the board. I'd hope to have them here to you this month, but that's going to come in June. And so again, as you keep in mind, as we're looking at enrollments and you know, all of those pieces, that facility plan has to kind of take some of those things into account. As we developed kind of a purpose and goals and priorities, you know, we've talked about quality learning spaces, safe and secure environments, building condition, enrollment changes, core space. Core space is, that's co-curricular athletic, that's fine arts, that's gyms, cafeterias, all of those other spaces that impact student learning besides classroom spaces. And then permanent construction. Permanent construction would be, how are we addressing the temporary classroom that's at Madison? Like, the goal is to not have those kinds of spaces. And also, we have some buildings that don't have the kind of the secured vestibules, right? Those are pieces that we need to be considering and addressing. Working with the architect to get some kind of plans together and some potential costs, which would go back to that facility committee. Working with Tom in terms of, as we put these plans together and look at our our save dollars, that's the 1% sales tax dollars that we have. We also have PEPAL funds, but looking more at using those because we still have the kind of ongoing routine maintenance that has to happen, purchasing of buses, technology, computers, all of that has to be factored into that. So putting kind of a larger plan together that will address a lot of those issues, and we will have that to you in June. So we can get that in front of you, get that in front of the community, get some feedback on that, and get those projects moving forward. In addition to that, we will be looking at putting out an RFQ. That's a request for qualifications for a construction management firm. So what construction management does is work for the district, and they oversee the projects. They help hire some of the subcontractors. They ensure things are coming in on time, on budget. They're working with the architects in the planning phase to make sure that we're kind of considering all those factors. As we look at the number of projects that we're going to be moving forward with and the changes to construction costs that are happening on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, we really need a firm like that, and there are several locally that I'm sure will put in for that as we move this forward. Typically, that does come at a kind of a flat fee percentage, or not percentage, but as a flat fee. And I will tell you, it doesn't, as I've had the experience in other districts, it doesn't necessarily cost you any more money to do that. Some of the work that they'll do offsets some of the architect fees, but it does help ensure that things are getting done on time and on budget, which right now, considering cost increases and some of the challenges in workforce, I think will be important if we want to get these things accomplished from a facility standpoint. So just so you know, we'll be getting that out there. That'll come back to the board for approval before anything is finalized. And that's all I have.
Any question for Clint? Okay, thank you, Clint. Very comprehensive report, so thank you. Appreciate that. And Daphne, thank you also for your effort and congratulations. Thank you. Moving forward, action and possible action item. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. The items are minutes, employment recommendations, bills and claims, policies, no minimal required by law, student teaching agreement with Luther College, a student teaching agreement with Vesta University, a student teaching agreement with Iowa Wesleyan, a driver education service agreement, inter-fund transfer from general fund to PEPAL fund for ESSER HVAC projects. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. All of you, or all those in favor of accepting the possible actions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is item K, to approve the AEA purchasing agreement with Mississippi Bend AEA for 2022-2023. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the AEA purchasing agreement as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this a standard yearly agreement with AEA?
You've approved some other AEA purchasing agreements. Again, there are multiple areas within this with food, some detergent and cleaning supplies. But again, because we can work through the AEA, we can get some better pricing for that.
It becomes more of a co-op
Yeah.
kind of situation.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the AEA purchasing agreement with Mississippi Bend AEA for the year 2022-2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carries. Moving forward, approve the purchase of one propane-powered wheelchair lift-equipped bus from school bus sales in the amount of $142,240. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion to approve the propane-powered wheelchair lift bus.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Real quick, $2,000 on a trade-in, is that correct?
That's very typical. Most of our buses, when we trade them in,
Ryan, can we go to the mic, please? Thank you.
You cut him up to the microphone.
Yeah, so life expectancy on a school bus is, if according to our inspector, would be about 11 years. So by that time, they decrease from, $100 to $150,000 to about $2,000. Sometimes I get 2,700 and I'm happy, and sometimes I get 1,500. But yeah, it's very typical, around $2,000 for a trade-in.
What are the mileage on that trade?
167,000.
So we've.
Yeah, it's
got our
so the
well
trade-in bus is an '09, so it's significantly older. It's a diesel bus, which most districts are tending to go away from diesel buses based on multiple factors. So, and then by the time that bus rolls around, the floors are starting to get a little soft and things are worn out.
So what actually happens to those buses by the end of their lifetime with us?
Well, so a lot of smaller districts that are very budget restricted will buy an older bus and try to nickel and dime themselves through a couple years. We've been very fortunate. We have our plan in place where I'm going to buy 3 to 4 buses a year to keep our fleet in good shape. That's going to, this year I'm only buying one because we only really have one that we need. So I don't want to go above and beyond. There's other needs that we have in the district that we can spend that money on. Tom, I'm still spending the money. So, so in most buses will get shipped out to our dealer and then resold to a smaller district. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, all those in favor of approving the purchase of one propane-powered wheelchair lift-equipped bus from school bus in the amount of $142,240, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. The next item is one of my favorite items, obviously. It's throughout the year, approving the tentative MHS class of 2022 graduates. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion to approve the tentative MHS class of 2022.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Is it possible to pull Dylan off?
Well, I was just
to
going to
keep him
say,
for 1 year, like to mentor the next group, even for a spring.
make sure you pass this so I can leave.
This is the one item that really matters.
This is definitely the best item is when we see students walking through that stage receiving their diploma. But anyway, all those in favor of approving the tentative MHS class of 2022 graduates, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving forward, next item to approve the amended FY22 budget. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion to approve the FY22 amended budget.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the amended FY22 budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Okay, moving forward, we move into our discussion and information piece of our agenda. And the first item is March financials, and we go to Tom, please.
Yep, and I just realized in your board book, it says February, but we are in March financials that are being presented tonight. So we have the bank reconciliation, to our fund balance, so that's reconciled. And then the next page would be the fund financial statement, and just paying attention to how our fund balance is doing, and no red flags here. And, just in the self-funding insurance, that's always a good one to look at. This is obviously through March of 2022, where our self-funding insurance fund balance is. The next two pages would be the general fund revenues through March compared to last year through March. And again, we are almost 3/4 of the way, 75% through the fiscal year. So no red flags to present unless you have any questions, or no red flags to bring up, but that's the March financial report. Thank you.
Any question for Tom? Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward, we move into first reading of policies, and under that we only have one policy, 501.4, grade placement. Any board member would like to talk about that or have any question? Okay, moving forward, we move into next item, second reading of policies. 603, student assessment. The recommendation is to delete that. 601.12, teaching controversial issues. 601.14, teaching about religion. 601.17, programs for disadvantaged students, preschool, and the recommendation is to delete. Any board members have any question about any of those policies? Okay. Moving forward, we move into summer facilities projects, and I assume Ryan will be sharing some information with us.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to kind of give you an update on what's going to be happening over the summer months here. So, first of all, we have two major summer projects that are happening. That would be the Student Center at the high school, which should start June 1st. The substantial completion date for that is scheduled for August 12th, so right before school starts. And then that also includes our new student services area for guidance counselors, therapy rooms, and our new nurses suite. So everything goes to plan. We'll be up and ready to go right before school starts. Our furniture will also be in, our new furniture will also be in right about that time. I met with the student team on Thursday of last week to look at their merged plans, which they'll be coming to talk to you guys about in June. Additionally, we have 3 buildings that are getting some HVAC renovations. We have the high school, Susan Clark, and Grant, which are all getting HVAC renovations over the summer. Again, they'll start June 1st. Everything will be up and running, but a lot of those projects are going to be finishing up in October. There are a couple of those that we're waiting on some switchgear. We have some really long lead times on some electrical switchgear, like 40-week lead times. So we have that in place where they're going to temp in electrical services, and then when that new switchgear gets in, replace it with very limited impact on the school environment. I mean, we're talking, half hour to an hour replacement of switchgear. So not very long at all. Centralized Kitchen is still on the calendar. We're meeting right now to kind of formalize a site plan that we can move forward with that project when time allows here. Other projects that are happening over the summer, I kind of divided this into buildings. So at the high school, we have the orchestra room is finishing up with soundproofing and their storage of facility or cabinet storage, I guess. We have the camera system that's being updated at the high school to kind of alleviate some of the blind spots that we have and replace existing cameras with better cameras that allow us to zoom in on some of those areas where it's hard to identify students or things that are happening. Concrete steps out of the parking lot and handicap ramps are almost done. We are waiting on a railing for one of our steps, but that has been done. Tennis court trees are in the process of being cut down, trying to get rid of those roots that are kind of cracking that surface right now. So that is almost halfway done. It should be finishing up here in the next couple weeks, depending on the weather. The pool has just undergone drainage and resurfacing, regrouting. That was going to be filled today, but they were flushing hydrants on Mulberry, so we decided not to do that. So we were going to wait to fill the pool until probably Friday. Takes about 3 days to fill it, so it should be up and running in the middle of next week, hopefully, after testing and stuff gets done. At Susan Clark, we are going to do a camera update for them as well, again, to alleviate some of those blind spots and update our cameras. At Grant, we're updating 4 classrooms with new cabinetry and paint. A lot of those that building was built in 1954. Those are original cabinets. So we're updating some of that. The great thing with that project in particular is those are cabinets that were ordered for the McKinley renovation that didn't get used. So we are doing this very efficiently as far as the cost goes. Mulberry, their gym, if you've ever been in their gym during lunch, is horrendous as far as sound goes. So they're getting soundproofing in their gym, and they're getting a kind of a facelift as well with some paint throughout the hallways. McKinley, their old parking lot, we're redoing some concrete in their old parking lot where we have some significant potholes. So we're going to take care of that. Madison, like Clint said earlier, we updated our agreement with the portable. So we have an additional 2 years per the city for that, which will enable us to then do some facility planning. And the company is good with that as well. We're also looking at a potential library like flooring update. I'm waiting on cost to come back to see if we can still do that this summer or not. Maintenance building has undergone a facelift, new flooring in that building. And then transportation, they are getting a new hot water pressure heater or pressure washer. And we're looking at a potential of hooking that building up to city water. It is on a well right now, and that well is sometimes contaminated, which allows us not to utilize that water. So we're looking at that potential too, depending on cost analysis. So that's kind of what's going on this summer. Yeah, Karen.
I learned sometimes because I talked a lot, so I learned I should probably raise my hand before I start talking. You mentioned about with Madison, with that 2-year degree agreement thing, because I seem to remember that was something the city had us do to be able to show because we were expecting to only have to try to use it for the 2 years and without having to add on to the building. So they're actually allowing us to do 2 more years?
Yes.
With any other expectations on us on it?
That we will not do it again after the 2 years. They were
That's
very
what I'm
clear
getting
with
at.
that.
Yeah.
We will not get an additional window. So we have the 2 years to make something happen.
Right. Thank you.
What's the status on the scoreboards for the stadium and then also for the gymnasiums?
Yeah. So gymnasium, part of the scoreboard is in. Video board should be in next week to install on that. The outside scoreboard, we were waiting on some artwork to get done for sponsors. That is finalized now, so we are looking at that coming in hopefully over the month of June. There is some installation issues we're working around. It's a little tight back there where we want it to go for their equipment to come in, so that's something that I've been working with their installer and that company to get done over June.
What about the gymnasium?
Gym will be done this month.
Okay, so are we anticipating that we're going to be able to use that stadium scoreboard when first football game?
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
100%. It
right.
will be done and installed by the start of football season.
Okay.
Is there any thought about removing the middle school bleachers and putting a track shed there. So they don't have to move a high jump pit.
Stop reading my notes.
All right.
Yes, that has been considered. Right now, that wasn't high on my priority list as we move forward, but it definitely could happen, Mike.
Do you want help?
Like, you're gonna build it? No, I don't want your help.
If it's breaking it and I can do
no, that is something that we've considered, and I think it's probably a good idea in the long run.
Brian, do you want to mention the vape detectors too?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, as a part of our camera update at the high school and middle school, we've also looked at installing vape detectors in some of our bathrooms. Those vape detectors do more than just detect the offspring from the vape pens. They can respond to somebody who needs help. They are do they also respond to like a fight scenario, if I remember correctly?
It'll actually pick up sound. So if it senses there's commotion, it'll notify people, and it also then I think syncs with cameras as well.
Yeah, it syncs with our camera system. It also syncs with our radios for our security team. So it's not like they blare this huge like alarm. Just radios the security team that vape is detected or help assistance is needed, and it allows us to be a little bit more responsive to those things.
I think right now the plan is to do kind of a few targeted locations to see how they work and function, and if we have good results, we can look at expanding that.
And you're thinking just at the high school level?
No, it's Susan Clark
Both,
as well.
both middle
Perfect.
school and high school right now.
Perfect, good.
So they're not cheap, but I think that's going to be a good addition for our building safety.
Is there a big problem with vaping?
I'm not in the building. I would say
The answer is
yes.
yes. And it's an ip everywhere. And it's not like, when we were in school and somebody was smoking, you could smell it. This can happen immediately. You can't smell it. It kind of goes away within seconds. It's very difficult to keep track of. You can hide those things very easily. I think, is it the police department that has the rooms set up where parents can go through to?
Yeah. If you
That's a
want to look
trailer.
at, like, I have like 30 in my desk right now, so that if you guys want to look and see what they look like, I can show them to you. So.
And they're readily available out in the community, so it is an ongoing issue. We saw the numbers, you kind of saw it decrease there for a little while, and now, once the pandemic hit, it definitely has come back strong and something we're working on.
So Ryan, I'm sure you would be extremely busy this summer based on all the projects that you will be working on, right?
I will not be bored.
I assume that, right?
Yeah, no, I'm excited about the projects that we have in store. We're getting some buildings that need some attention, some TLC, and I'm really excited for our HVAC and student center projects to get up and running and done for our kids. So.
Thank you.
And this is another reason why, Clint, you were talking about wanting to get a construction management team in so that it's going to take the load off of your back, so to speak, on some of that.
Yeah, and I'll fully admit, I'm not a construction guy. I'm an educator. I'm an administrator. I'm not. So I've learned a lot. I'm going to continue to learn a lot, but having that resource would be extremely helpful.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, moving forward to announcement, meetings, and event. May 10th, which is tomorrow, Riverbend Mobile Food Pantry at 4:30 at our district administrative center. May 11, 2-hour early dismissal. May 15, Roy J. Carver Charitable Trust, Excellence in Education at 2 p.m. at the Mirror Hotel. May 17, Project Search Graduation, 6 p.m. at the Rendezvous. May 22nd, Class of 2022 Graduation, 2 p.m. at MHS Stadium. May 24th, District-wide Retiree Celebration, 4 to 6 at the Rendezvous. And June 13, School Board Regular Meeting, again here in this chamber at 7 p.m. Anybody else have any other announcement that would like to share with us?
Yeah, John, I'd just like to thank the the district administrative team for all your hard work that you've done throughout the year. I'd also like to thank the staff, you know, the teaching staff, the non-certified staff. May is a difficult month. If you've ever taught, May is very difficult. So hang in there, the end is near, and sometimes students check out, and so you just need to stay positive and do the best you can, and I just want to know that the board here supports you, whatever you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Good night.